typically have to feel really good about ourselves. We have to feel confident. We have to feel committed. We have to trust. And those are people's primary issues. They don't trust. They just want the good stuff to happen. They don't recognize the relationship between trust and prosperity.
Right.
So.
Right. And so how do you address the question, which I would imagine you get this, is everything already written? Is that blueprint set? Where is our choice points and where is fate, as it were?
Okay. Great question. We come here with a set of frequencies we want to experience. Like I wanted to learn about trust. I wanted to learn about honesty. I wanted to learn about betrayal. I wanted to learn about those types of things to advance myself. So I came with those frequencies, and circumstances created themselves so I could have those experiences. But I did pick certain people to do it with.
Okay.
So I think the family piece is set. We pick those folks.
Right.
But everything else is pretty much open. And our primary relationships, the first husband, wife, or the second, or the third, and, our primary friendships, those are chosen before.
Right.
But everything else is pretty much open. And I look at a lot of people who have option relationships. Is this the one, Phyllis? Well, it could be. You can create it, but it wasn't destined. Doesn't have to be. And sometimes those are the best ones because they're intentional.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way of thinking of it. So if a person is coming to you and asking those questions, and they're wondering about how set something is or isn't, what I heard you say in there is that there is choice and there is intention,
yes.
Which is great. And so if people are struggling with how to intentionally maybe shift out of the circumstances that they're in right now, what would you suggest on that?
Well, of course, it depends on the circumstance. For most people, it's their fear is dominating their ability to make a choice, or they've been conditioned to believe they don't deserve something, or what's the other top one when people get frustrated? If it's not deserving or fear, it's just programming. So it's become aware of what's holding you back from going after your good, And it's a process. You can only process as much fear and stuff as you can. Right. But if you stay committed to it, you'll get through it eventually.
And one of the things that I heard you say, and with your own life, with some of the issues that you're working out with the honesty and betrayal. So what that leads me to know is that what I'm hearing is you're holding something that was a very painful experience in your past. There was a purpose. There was a higher purpose for it in your own learning.
Oh, thank you so much for that beautiful statement. Life is working for us. Mm-hmm. It's perspective that tells us other words. All experiences are divine food of life. Mm-hmm. And any other perspective that tells us otherwise is ego-based. And so it's like, it's serving us. We asked for it. We wanted it. What did I get from this? And so we always have to be asking, how did this serve me? Not, I'm a victim of something, but how did it serve me? Every single circumstance. And until you get to that point to where you see the 360, this is what I got out of it, you're not done with doing the 360.
And I think sometimes it's hard, especially for people who have, childhood abuse. Right, and for somebody which I think that certainly it's a common. We know how often that's happening, and people get very stuck in that story of I was just a child. How could there be any purpose to that?
Yeah.
And yet, you're saying there is a way to hold it in a different container. How do you coach people on that?
Well, first of all, there's layers to these processes, and as I said earlier, you can only process as much as you can at a given period of time. Sometimes you can have a miraculous healing like that'll change your life. Other times it takes 10 years of therapy or something. But there is a process. Self matters. The first thing a victim has to do is know that self matters, that you matter. And that's the first step for anyone recovering from any form of abuse. Self matters. Mm-hmm. And then you move into a place of release and just getting it off, getting some of that emotion and those experiences out. Mm-hmm. But the critical piece is when you can begin to look at your perpetrator or your abuser and recognize that only wounded people wound others and say, why did that person do that to me? What was their deal? Not to forgive them or relinquish responsibility for their contribution to that experience, but so you can restore the humanity, because we're all connected.
Right.
And we have to be able to see the God consciousness in every person, regardless how grotesque they may be in the human experience, because this is not all there is.
Right.
So there is a process, and you have to put each of those pieces in place. But it is doable. It's work worth doing. And when you get to the other side, you're like, I'm stronger and better because of it. I'm who I am because of it. I
That's
don't
right.
have to hate it anymore.
That every circumstances of our life is a piece of the tapestry of who we are now.
Exactly.
And can contribute, if we hold those experiences in different ways, to who we're capable of growing
Now,
into.
by no means am I an advocate of abuse, okay?
Of course.
I'm not, as a standalone act, no, but it's
Right.
not, nothing is a standalone act. Everything is connected to something greater.
That's right. And what I'm hearing you say is there's a way, I hear that you've done this, you've had this in your practice, it's a story in your book, but that you've actually looked at the painful circumstances of your life and have shifted your perspective in a way where it's served your growth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I look now at the work I do, and people come to me with a myriad of devastating circumstances, and I'm glad that I've been through it because I can hold a space for them while they get through their process. And I couldn't have done that but for the experiences I've had. So now I can serve at a greater level because of what I've been through.
Beautiful. And when somebody comes to you for a reading and they have a painful experience, most of us many, I mean, certainly it's not just one, is that part of what they question you about? How can you support me to look at this? Because it seems to me you have this incredible gift of being able to view it for looking at the whole person, not just the incident.
Well, and I'm very sensitive to people's boundaries in terms of how much they can handle, how much they can hear. I had a woman in my office who just had her boyfriend murdered 2 days before she was there. So I hold a space for them and give them a perspective as much as they can tolerate in a moment. And then they choose from there what's my next step. But I'm all about empowering people to be where they are, and it's not a right or wrong, a good or bad, it's just a cause and effect. And we can we can deal with cause and effect. We don't have to judge it, worry about it, anything else.
Well, it sounds like also one of the gifts that you have when somebody's coming to you for a reading is how that they feel heard and seen.
Oh,
Truly,
absolutely.
deeply heard and seen by you.
I do. I see people like an avatar. I
Yes.
see you,
Right. Didn't you love that line, that I see you?
It's so true. I see you,
Right.
yeah. And people need to be seen. That's why I talk about validation is the most powerful form of healing there is.
Right.
Just say, sometimes even when I'm teaching psychic development and a student sees something scary or unfortunate, there's a trick I say, I would call it blowing roses, dissipate the energy. It's just really about, preserving that moment for them.
Right. So when somebody sees it on that, so tell us, in the couple minutes that we have left, how can people do this practice of them for themselves to really validate it without victimizing it?
Well, a lot depends on where they're at in their process, okay?
Right.
And most of us need community. We're trained in the United States of America, or Western culture, to be independent. We need each other. And we really do. That's right, there's more of us.
That's right.
And so I think reaching out for community support is probably one of the biggest things you can do. That's why I offer so many groups so people can come and be with the beliefs and ideologies that are true to them. And so that's a really important step so that you can get some feedback that makes sense to you.
Well, and I think that's also, I think, that old adage that our best thinking got us here, sometimes without having somebody support us to find a new perspective, it could be very difficult to actually climb out of those, especially if it is a very painful circumstance.
Right, and there's a process and there's ways to do it that make it more benevolent to your body and your process.
Right.
So that it doesn't have to be just this one long crying spell after the next.
That's good. So reaching out for help. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you. First of all, thank you for my reading.
It's fun. Very
thank
fun.
you for seeing me.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate that. And thank you for being here and offering such
Thanks for having me.
practical application in these
Thanks,
wonderful
Cheryl.
things. Yes. Well, thank you for being on this planet. And thank you all for being here also. And please join us again on A Forum for Spirituality.